All right. Hello, my name is Thomas Hall, and you're tuning into a Clean Start Perspective. This is where we talk with entrepreneurs and stakeholders in the energy transition to learn about what they're working on and what kind of drives them. So, without further ado, I do want to make sure that we recognize the groups that make this possible. That's SMUD, our local utility in the Sacramento area, which has a zero emissions goal by 2030. Chico Start, supporting entrepreneurship in the North State. Fresno State's Water Tech, Energy and Technology Center, down there, of course, in Fresno, where they're doing all sorts of innovations around irrigation and building businesses around them, along with Wittenlaw, Baker Tilly, and River City Bank, supporting entrepreneurs growing in the clean energy sector in the greater Sacramento region and the entire valley for the entire time that I've been here. So, without further ado, I would like to welcome you all to this Clean Start Perspective with Sam Ruderman, founder of Resolv Rebate. Sam has been working in clean energy and the energy transition for as long as I can tell, looking at his LinkedIn. It seems like it's a real passion of his. So I'm going to start off with a question for you, Sam. What has you so energized about, I guess, clean tech and the energy transition?
Yeah, well, first off, thanks for having me. It's great to be here. Again, Sam Ruderman, I'm the co-founder of Resolv. What gets me jazzed? Well, the reason we started Resolv was to make it way easier, way more accessible to leverage clean energy incentives. And I think most folks aren't fully aware of truly how many programs there are out there, how much money there is out there. And so we wanted to make it just way, way easier, way faster for folks to find and leverage these dollars to help accelerate decarbonization. Um, and when you're starting a company, a tech startup, there's a lot of hypotheses and a lot of validating, and it's really cool now to be able to say like we validated that initial hypothesis and goal to make these incentives way more accessible to facilitate more clean energy projects. And so I'm just excited because there's so much opportunity out there, and we've developed a solution working with a lot of amazing partners that's really helping. And so it's been awesome to see in this past year or so that we've been able to catalyze more of these installs and help folks, improve energy efficiency and reduce energy costs and improve indoor air quality and reduce emissions in their homes. And I'm just excited about continuing to do that at scale in the future.
I love all the things that you highlighted there because we say energy transition to incorporate all these things from efficiency to even indoor air quality, as you mentioned there. Now, share a little bit about your partners and did they help in your validation? What was their role in growing your company?
Yeah, I mean, when I say I often end up using the word partners more than customers, because they are our partners, right? Like we built a software platform based on my lived experience and working experience in this industry, where I've had such a challenge with rebates. So just really quick, like a little story. My first job out of college, I was working at a green buildings consulting firm. And I studied environmental science and renewable resource management in college. So I was going into this new role just really stoked that I was going to, enhance sustainability in my home state of New Hampshire. I was going to reduce emissions from buildings, but very quickly I learned nobody's really talking about that. At least most folks aren't. When I say folks, I mean homeowners, commercial building owners, renters, and contractors. Typically, everybody is a little more concerned or cares more about the bottom line, what the project's going to cost, what their energy is going to cost. But what I realized is it doesn't really matter, right? It's okay that we don't talk about the environmental benefits so much because there's all these other things that people care about, co-benefits, and we can meet them where they're at, and the rebates help us do that, right? And so a lot of my job was just walking contractors through the process of finding the programs and understanding them, knowing the requirements and eligibility criteria and the processes, and then I'd actually do the rebate paperwork for them. This is like 10 years ago. It's a pen on paper, filling out a 3-page PDF document using the documents that the contractor printed out, the invoice and utility bill and permit and photos. Um, so I just say this to say, I've been in the trenches. I know rebates, but we really needed to work closely with folks in the field, boots on the ground, like in those trenches, today, in order to figure out what are the real needs, what are the gaps today, and how can we best solve them. So when I say partners, I'm talking about contractors, primarily HVAC and plumbing contractors across the state of California, working on primarily heat pump installs, heat pump space heating and heat pump water heating. And so, we built our first version of the platform almost 2 years ago, a little bit less. And then we started working with that company that I was hired by in New Hampshire 10 years ago to get their feedback and insights. And they really helped us, develop that first iteration of the platform that was addressing the gaps. We moved from there. We had like another kind of small group of beta testing contractors that helped us like a year and a half ago or so before really getting into the market in late 2024, early 2025. And all of that initial feedback that we got from like five of those partners was amazing and basically created the foundation of Resolv today. Um, but it's interesting. You know, you can never get enough customer or partner feedback and testing, right? Because once we started actually selling and getting in the market, and you get a more, diverse range of businesses and owners, operators, customers, that's when you really learn. And so it's just constant learning and iteration. I just had a call with a large shop in Southern California, and he told me some new stuff about the territory down there that I'd never heard, and I'm going to bring that back to the team. So yeah, it's always great.
I think it's, entrepreneurs really need to learn from that of, sometimes the past people that you worked with or your past job is an ally and wants to see you kind of grow on it. A lot of times, you take something from a job, you learn, and then you're like, I'm going to build this other thing. And you might be kind of worried, are they going to be upset that I left and created something new? But no, most of the time they're going to be your partners in it and want to see you grow. Now, how much do you see like differ from territory to territory? You mentioned a little bit about Southern California and learning some things down there. And I'm sure whether, in our Sacramento area, you go from Sacramento to PG&E to Roseville Electric, and they're all different when it comes to rebates. One is how do you kind of discover these differences? Where are you trying to find efficiencies in making it so that you can discover them and then get them to your partners? And is it something that they really differ in, I guess, what their goals are or how they're handled, or is it just administration?
Great question. There is a ton of variability and diversity in these programs. And at the same time, they're all very similar. So one of the kind of core problems that we're addressing is there's never been a truly comprehensive database of all the incentive programs that consistently is up to date and accurate. So there's been amazing resources over the years. Like one of the big ones is Desire, and apologies, I forget what that acronym actually stands for. But folks might be familiar. It's a great database of many incentive programs across the country, but definitely not all incentive programs. And my understanding is it's, a manual effort of cataloging those and updating them. And these programs change all the time. Program sunset, requirements or eligibility criteria change, midstream, mid-cycle, or they change, after in the new year of the program, and then new programs pop up all the time. So again, one of these, the main things that we knew we had to do from the get-go is figure out that problem because at the beginning of Resolv, I was just manually cataloging them like everybody else. There's another a great resource in California, the Switch is on. They have an amazing database of all the incentives. But we wanted to build a solution that would ensure that all incentives were cataloged and then continuously tracked and monitored for any changes. Because one of the challenges is while most of the programs are very similar, little differences in these requirements and criteria, if they change and folks don't know about them, they might go out and install equipment and install a job, tell the homeowner or the renter that they're going to get a certain amount of money for the rebates, and then maybe there's a new requirement for the statewide tech program, Tech Clean California, no more dual fuel equipment, for example. And we're in the foothills or something, so we wanted a dual fuel system. It's going to qualify for Roseville or SMUD, but all of a sudden it doesn't qualify for tech. So we knew we had to do that, and we've done that. We have our first version of our AI-driven like software solution that basically maintains this database of incentives. But the second thing we realized is while they are very different and constantly changing, there's like a finite list of like 100 things that you could ever need or that would ever be required of any program, right? So of all the programs across the country, this one might ask for, 30 different data inputs on the form, and this one asks for 50, but 25 of them are the same, right? And this other one has 40 and that's got, 35 overlap with the other two. So there's this kind of like discrete list of things that are ever going to be needed. And so that's super important and also really powerful because almost all that stuff, if it's a list of 100 things, it's going to be included most of the time in the different project documents. And so this is the foundation of Resolv. We leverage all of the project documents, the estimate or quote, the invoice, the customer's utility bill, photos of the old equipment, the new equipment, the HERS report, permits, et cetera. We can get so much information from those and automate 80%, 90% of the process of finding, qualifying, and applying for all the different rebates in the different regions.
Okay, so what is the kind of outcome of that been? Have you had a lot of customer success stories? Are you seeing that like, hey, it's automating it and then there's very little that needs to be done? Or are you kind of discovering, hey, we're able to get it, 70% of the way, but there's an additional 30% that needs to be manual or that you're still trying to automate?
Yeah, great question. So we've had it's been really amazing to see the success for our users. So for contractors, today they're in and out of our platform in 3 or 4 minutes probably, and they're usually applying for at least two, sometimes three different rebates. So that's been a major success, a major validation point for us is like, okay, we can effectively streamline and automate this process for contractors without Resolv or without another software solution or third party, service provider. It typically takes contractors at best an hour or two per application. But if you're applying to some of the beefier programs, if you will, it can often be 2, 3, even 4 hours per application, just to get these things in and do them well. And that's not even to, that's ignoring potential kickbacks. So I can say like we've done an amazing job at automating 95% of the process in just a few minutes for contractors. What's interesting is, we're leveraging our AI on the back end to do that automated review and verification that everything's there. It's all right. We've got the right little line item on the invoice that's specific to this program. And we have, the permit document, which is required for that program. And so on our side, when our team hops in to review the applications before submitting, we've got a really high quality AI analysis of the application, but it's not perfect, right? And it's not all the way there yet. So we still have human eyes doing that final QA/QC on every application, and we still got, that last little bit to continue to fully to automate and make perfect, if you will.
Okay, you got to have the human in the loop still, and I think
Exactly.
that's critical on it. Now, Uh, as far as kind of, I guess, the non kind of clean tech portion of your business is, customer acquisition. You have a software solution and you have to go and get, people signed up and use on it. What is your kind of customer acquisition strategy? How do you reach them and get them to start using your program?
Yeah, yeah. So, you can go to the contractor state license board and basically find all the contractors by license type for different geographies in California. So that was like a great first step to, developing kind of our customer database, if you will. There's also data available from programs around the country that are publicly available. So we leverage those. I mean, when we were first starting, a lot of this was just leveraging my network, both contractor network and also before Resolv, managing one of these building energy programs, had the chance to meet many different folks in the space that worked at utilities and other public agencies. And so they were running programs or engaging contractors in their regions. And so being able to leverage those relationships was huge to finding those initial kind of partners. Um, so, like I said, we've got kind of our core database of contractors in the state that we're trying to get in touch with and engage with. We also started running paid ads on Facebook and Instagram a few months ago, and I'm smiling because like I'm not coming from the marketing background. I've never like run paid ads before, but it's been pretty cool. We do get a lot of folks that book meetings from those ads, and it's been interesting to just like, yeah, see that we can connect with folks on social media and meet them where they're at. Often on Sundays, I've realized that's when we get a lot of meetings booked. I think that's the scrolling day. But it's cool because like, the folks that see the ad and they're like, oh, this is relevant for me. They'll look. And the other folks that it's not, applicable for, they scroll on.
Um, so kind of on that, based on your kind of revenue model, how many, I guess, Is your revenue model based on them applying and getting a rebate, or is it based on just a subscription?
Yeah, the latter. So
Okay.
contractors sign up for a plan with Resolv, like a monthly plan, based on their average project volume. So, we've got smaller mom and pop type shops. They might sign up for 3 projects a month. With that, they'll be able to apply for all the different rebates for each project. So they sign up for 3 projects. For the first one, there's the local utility rebate and the Tech Clean California statewide rebate. That's included, for one project. The second one, there's the local utility plus actually the air quality management district plus the statewide program again. So those are all included. So that's kind of our starter. We've got like a mid tier, or we call it the scale plan for contractors doing 10 or so projects a month, and then up from there to larger and enterprise customers.
Okay. So, for each dollar that I guess, um, a customer spends, how much are they seeing that they're getting back on it?
Yeah.
Because the rebate goes to the person that they're building for, right?
hmm
So,
Primarily, there are some
um,
programs that are contractor focused, which is also really cool.
okay. Okay. So what's
But
their kind of payback period on it?
yeah, yeah. So it's really awesome. Like the payback for contractors, the ROI is fantastic because one of the core value props of Resolv is find more rebates, sell more jobs, right? Contractors sell more jobs when they include incentives on their quotes. Some of them are doubling their win rates by including incentives when they weren't before, or as compared to before. And so if a contractor starts working with us, maybe they're doing rebates a little bit. This gentleman I just talked to right before this, he said, I'll do some here and there, but honestly, I just ignore some because they're too much of a pain, they're too difficult, they're too time consuming for me. It's just not worth it. So this gentleman, this company, they know rebates and they know that customers want them and that they help, facilitate sales. But sometimes it's just the juice isn't worth the squeeze for them. So now, hopefully, they start working with us. Resolv identifies all the rebates up front as they're developing their estimate, their quote, and then it qualifies the job. It makes sure that they're going to get the money based on what they're specing, the scope of work.
Mhm.
And then after the fact, they just upload their docs, they're done. So that job sells. That's a job maybe that wouldn't have sold before because they wouldn't have included the incentives. They've immediately paid back, that full month just from that one project.
So is most of your interaction, I guess, with the contractor, not the homeowner?
That's correct. Yep.
One thing that we've seen in some, companies that are trying to build things for, homeowners, whether it's using, new technologies or going after rebates, is trying to leverage the homeowners for, future opportunities that they could try to provide them. Now, kind of listening to you, it sounds like you don't have any connection to the homeowners. Are you at all looking at trying to build relationships with the homeowners that they're working with? Or is that, something that I noticed on your site you do have a spot for homeowners, but is that something you're like, okay, we're going to leave that in the contractors realm and just support the contractors?
Yes, it's a really good question, astute observation with the website. So, today, like I said, we work directly with contractors. We are a rebate software and services company for contractors. With that being said, it's not infrequent that there's some level of homeowner interaction because the contractor says, "Hey, they just can't figure this form out. Can you help walk them through it?" Or they've got a question on the demand response program. So, of course, like we're here to help the contractors by helping their customers, the homeowners. But we're not targeting homeowners today per se. We do have the homeowners section of our website because, of course, like lots of folks are trying to find out more information about
Not
these
going to
things.
turn away business.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and it's kind of funny, like when we were first just ideating on Resolv, the initial prototype, the initial idea was building an app that every homeowner in America and building owner in America can and will use anytime they're making an energy related purchase or doing an energy related project, where they just take a photo of that quote, that estimate. Because we know like 90% of jobs don't include incentives when they could. So homeowners take the photo of the quote. It says, "Great, we found 2 different incentive programs. You qualify for 1,000 here and 2,000 there. Here's what you're going to need." But we realized really quickly, the play for us right now as a startup is to, focus on working with the contractor. They have both the burdens of rebates and the opportunities of rebates for their business. But we still, we always remember like that. That's where we started, and that's kind of the long-term vision. Is this is something that every single building owner, operator, and contractor in America can use to find, qualify, and claim incentives.
Okay, so I kind of want to walk through, I guess, your journey to here. and of course, stalked you on LinkedIn and everything to, find this. But you're part of AmeriCorps, the Civic Spark program, which is an absolute awesome program. And it looks like it brought you to, I guess, you know, California, Tahoe City. Now, my question is, did you go there for the snowboarding?
I 100% moved here for the skiing. Yes.
The
So
skiing, okay.
I grew up on the East Coast, grew up skiing ice coast mountains, born from ice. I was like a ski racer and a ski jumper. And I went to college in Montreal, so pretty much the same. Um, in college, I skied Jay Peak, which is like kind of a small, somewhat lesser known mountain in very northern Vermont, right on the border actually of Canada. So I would drive down in the winters, especially like, my later years in university, to ski Jay Peak. And Jay Peak is really cool and unique because it's an East Coast mountain that gets like 400 inches of snow on average a year. There's like a lake effect there, and anyways, I started skiing powder. And I watched a documentary, I think my sophomore year, called McConkey. And it's like a Red Bull documentary about one of really like the pioneers of big mountain, free ride skiing. And Shane McConkey, yeah, legend, and a pioneer in the sport. He was at some point for a long time based in Tahoe at skiing at Palisades Tahoe, formerly Squaw Valley. And so I remember watching that being like, oh, that's pretty cool. I might have to try to go do that at some point. And then by like my junior year, I was like, I'm doing a ski bum season after college. So I moved out to Tahoe for one ski bum winter. It was the winter of 2016, 2017. It snowed 750 inches here. I like skied 100 days of powder and had an awesome time. But then I decided, okay, I got my fill. I'm going to go back east. I got my job working at Resilient Buildings Group was that first roll out of college. Shout out Resilient Buildings Group, and um, was there for 7 or 8 months, and then eventually just got this itch like, "Ah, I think I might have to go back for one more winter." So I came back out. I did one more ski bum season. I was coaching big mountain skiing and working in the restaurant. But I will say that that whole winter, I was like, I got to figure out what's next. I really want to get back to doing the work in my career. And feel really fortunate that I found the Civic Spark program because there was a solid minute there where I was like, okay, Tahoe is this beautiful outdoor, environmentally minded, eco-conscious place, but a relatively small economy, right? And so I was like, oh shoot, maybe I'm not gonna be able to stay here. And I really wanted to. I wanted to experience a Tahoe summer. And so yeah, the job market wasn't looking great locally, but I found Civic Spark and was I accepted a role at the Sierra Nevada Alliance, an environmental nonprofit, and covers the entire Sierra Nevada, but office is in Tahoe City and South Lake Tahoe at the time. And so that was really like more of my entry into the world of climate action and adaptation. And so, I was doing planning work and greenhouse gas emissions inventories, but another, part of my job that first year was working with the city of South Lake Tahoe to evaluate all of their buildings, doing energy audits and developing retrofit recommendations, and then helping facilitate some of those projects. So it was cool to not lose that passion that I had started to build at my first role in the building energy space.
But that sounds, terrific. It's, following a passion, you never know where it leads up or leads to. And, I think there's a clear, um, you know, connection between, climate change, the risk, and how many powder days you'll get a year. Probably have a
Exactly.
lot more ice days than
Nimbus.
powder if,
Got to protect our winners sticker right here.
yeah. Now, you're also the climate entrepreneur in residence at the Lift Truckee. Could you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so shout out to Lyft Truckee. The Lyft is a co-working space, but also a community space and a community, facilitator and enabler. It's this fantastic co-working space in Truckee, and I've known some of the owners operators there, have crossed paths with them over the years in my work on climate and environmental stuff in Truckee, Tahoe. Um, but shortly after we started Resolv, I was at a Climate Transformation Alliance meeting here in Truckee. It's a private public partnership with a lot of agencies and organizations in the area to achieve our renewable energy and decarbonization goals locally. And I was sitting at my desk or my seat in the meeting. I got a sticky note passed to me, and it was Jan Holland, who's owner founder of the Lift, and he said, "Hey, we're starting a climate entrepreneur in residence program. Are you interested?" And I was like, I have no idea what this is, but yes, sounds great. And so it was awesome. They basically sponsored me and gave me a spot at the lift at the co-working space, and gave me access to a fantastic group of folks there. It's really, I mean, they have an amazing space, and just this culture that they've cultivated. And there's a lot of folks in the energy world, climate tech world. And so I started going to the Truckee Climate Hub meetings, which is like an offshoot, if you will, of the Lift, this group that they've created for folks in the climate world, climate careers. And yeah, I ended up on the steering committee of that group, so helping organize events and planning and things like that. And it's just been amazing. I would say if anybody's ever up in Truckee and needs a place to work, go check it out. I have folks that have come and visited from like New York City and San Francisco and Denver, and everybody who goes to Lyft is like, holy smokes, this is like the nicest, most enjoyable co-working space I've ever been to. It's awesome.
I'll definitely have to do that on one of my trips up to Tahoe
Check
because
it
it
out. They'll
does
give you a
sound
free
it does
day.
sound really nice, you know.
It's
Truckee's
awesome.
a beautiful area.
It
Um,
is.
Now how much of, your experience with the Sierra Business Council, I guess, the Sierra Nevada Alliance, being at Civic Spark, how much of that, network building did you rely on for Resolve? And when you initially did it, was it you're just trying to meet as many people as possible and build your network? Was it strategic? Was it kind of happenstance? Because you mentioned that, initially at Resolve, you were able to turn to a lot of contractors that you already knew through your experience. Um, and I'm curious about how you were able to build that network. Was it just happenstance, or was it kind of strategic in, thinking out how you wanted to grow your career?
Yeah, you're saying like while I was at Sierra Business Council in previous roles, was I thinking about, the networking for the
Yeah.
future?
Well, we talked to entrepreneurs about part of what you're doing is not just trying to sell your business, you're trying to sell yourself. And you have to go and present yourself, whether it's on LinkedIn or at events, as someone who's knowledgeable in this space. Because when you get investment, the number one thing they invest in is you and your team, not necessarily the technology. We say there's three T's. The first one is team, the next one is traction, and then the last one is your technology that people invest in. So building this network and initial the people that you're working with, that's your team and your traction. Um, so as you're kind of going through it, where you're like, okay, this is just a standard thing of how I have to build myself, or did you kind of have a larger vision in it?
So hopefully this answers your question. I think when I was just figuring out like, should we do Resolve? Should I really, jump in with both feet here and leave my awesome job at Sierra Business Council that I'd only been there for like 14 months or something. I think one of the key considerations for me was like I said earlier, I've been in the trenches. Like I've done this work, boots on the ground. I know the problems really well. I also know the opportunity. I also know the people. Like, over the course of 6 or 7 years in the climate and energy space, like I had developed a lot of relationships with staff and representatives at utilities, cities, counties, other public agencies, special districts, state organizations, and contractors. And so that was really cool because number one, before I'd actually made the decision to jump into Resolve, I started talking to those folks and saying, hey, what are your thoughts on this problem, right? What are you guys seeing today with your programs, with your contractors, and just validating the pain points that I thought I knew, right? Making sure that those weren't just in my head, um, and was able to get that validation pretty quickly. And it's kind of cool with that first prototype, it was a contractor platform, but I was showing it to like utility and public agency staff that ran programs or worked with rebate programs. And I'd say, what do you think? Do you think this would help your contractors? And they'd say, oh, yeah, absolutely. Contractors are going to love this. But have you thought about building something like this for us? I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, well, our staff are often, doing research manually on rebates themselves because contractors are calling. And then, when we get the applications, the submissions that come in, like our team has to manually review everything still. And it takes a lot of time and we're eating up admin budget on this stuff. So we're like, huh, yeah, I think we could do that. And we realized like we could actually just take our contractor platform, basically copy it, modify it to like run in reverse, and voila, we had that. And so like that was, yeah, just like that was quite early on actually in Resolve where leveraging my network or just having those conversations with my network like helped basically guide Resolve to like this second kind of parallel pathway and opportunity that we had.
All
Um,
right, now I got some questions on, on your business here. So, how are you growing your business? Are you bootstrapping it? Are you looking for investment? Have you gone to friends and family or any angels? How are you growing your business?
yeah, so we initially bootstrapped, but not that long after, started a family and friends angels round. Um, and so that was really awesome. We got a lot of quick early support, trying to raise, $500,000 initially, and we got like 65, 70% of the way there. Um, and then I had a friend who's in the private equity world and knew a venture capital firm that was really interested in the space. He said, "Hey, you should talk to these guys." And so we met with them, and it was funny. Like the call started, and the investor said, "Hey, we've been following this space for quite some time. We've looked into a lot of companies. We've never really thought that anybody's figured it out. The timing hasn't been right. So I just want to let you know, like, we're not, we're interested, but we're not super sold." I was like, "No worries. Happy to just chat about it." And at the end of the hour, he said, "Okay, I got to see a demo. Let's schedule a follow-up meeting. This sounds pretty cool." So we scheduled that follow-up meeting with my co-founder Shane and did the demo, and they got back to us like 5 days later. They're like, "All right, we want to, close out your family and friends round." So it ended up being a little bit of a pre-seed round because that VC also introduced us to three of their partner firms that they invest alongside with for these types of deals. So we ended up actually oversubscribing and raised a bit more. And that was in early 2025. So it's been fantastic. That funding has allowed us to get to where we are now. Like I said, working with like 85, 90 contractors across the state. We have a handful of utility public agency partners as well. And we've grown the team. Like we're up to six, actually seven staff today. We had a new staff member start earlier this morning, which is super exciting. So it's been amazing. And we've been able to do a lot with that funding, but we're at the point now where we've, validated those initial like early go-to-market strategies and tactics. We've proved out that this is something customers want to pay for because they need help. They understand that it's not worth their time and frustration, and that there's a huge opportunity here. And so we're currently raising around. There's a public solicitation thing, so hopefully this doesn't infringe upon any of those regulations. But yes, we're currently fundraising today.
So, if they have questions, they should probably reach out to you
Um,
outside of this.
yeah, yeah, or not, because we can't say that live on the air.
Oh,
No,
okay.
I'm half joking.
All right. Well,
Public
you're
solicitation,
you're you're
like
you're
Greg
you're the
B.
one who has to follow the regulations on this,
I am
and
not soliciting. Yeah.
not soliciting. All right, you are not soliciting. All right, but like, so as far as I guess working with your investors, so it sounds like you have to keep your friends and family kind of that close capital that you raised from. You got to keep them happy, and then you also have it sounds like VC money or more kind of institutional capital. How do you kind of balance working with those? Does one have more influence than the other? Is there one that's easy and one that's hard?
Nobody's hard. I mean, everybody's fantastic. I mean, our family and friends that wanted to support us early on, like honestly, I'm sure most of them, if not all of them, wouldn't have invested in it if they didn't believe in the vision and the massive opportunity and our ability to execute. But also, like I've had some of my closest friends and family tell me like, just want to support you and what you're doing is really cool and it seems like it makes sense, right? And like, I try to send updates as often as I can. Probably not quite often enough. But it's not like I'm getting any pressure from any friends and family, which we feel really fortunate about because I know that that's not always the case. We did make sure, we didn't want anybody to overextend themselves, even if they did really want to support. And people often ask me like, "Weren't you worried about taking money from friends and family?" And what I said is like, we wouldn't have accepted investment from any friends and family that we weren't 100% sure, like knew what they were doing, which is investing in an early stage AI tech startup, which is not the highest success rate if you look at the macro. So we
Mhm.
wanted to make sure everybody knew that. And our institutional investors have been fantastic. Like they're great. They are, as they put it, early on, like they're here to help when we want it, when we need it, but they're not going to be, looking over our shoulder, breathing down our neck the rest of the time, which has honestly been awesome. Like I do feel bummed for founders that have to deal with that early on because like there's no time and space for that, right? Like there's the task list is infinite and there's only so many hours in the day and only so many people on the team. And if I had investors, knocking on the door every week or two, or even every month, asking for things directly from me that like wasn't on my list of things that I needed to accomplish that day, week, month. That would have slowed us down, honestly. So it's been great to have that, here when we need it.
It's
Not
always good to have capital that aligns with your vision on that.
for sure.
How, how's your revenue doing?
It's really cool right now to be able to say it's going well. Yeah, no, we're getting to a place. I was just telling somebody yesterday that like, um, yeah, we are. It's cool to see. I still get the emails of like the Stripe payouts every month, and like now it's not an insignificant amount of money, and um, it's also just helping us with our runway and like relieving the pressure of needing to raise. And like I have heard stories of founders not having, just to be direct, like investors having leverage because they're like, yeah, they're going to need, they've got 3 months or even 6 months of runway left. We're fortunate that the money coming in the door is kind of helping to alleviate some of that pressure.
So, do you have an estimate of what your annual revenue is expected to be, or?
Yeah, yeah. We'll close out the year in the mid six figures, which is cool.
All right.
Yeah,
Um, and then hopefully, grow beyond there.
absolutely.
So what's next for Resolve?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, we're doing some we're fundraising. um, and we're doing that because like I said, we've learned a lot. Like we've figured some stuff out. And we feel really confident in what we figured out. And I say that to say we know how to deploy capital right now, right? Like we know where we need to make some key hires. We know some key marketing channels that we should be doubling, tripling down on, quadrupling down on. Um, so number one, we're hiring on the sales side. We figured out that repeatable, scalable sales motion. We've really hit our stride in the past like 2, 3 months. It's been awesome to see the growth and the acceleration. So hiring a few folks on the sales side, um, hiring another full-time engineer to help continue to build out the product, especially as we scale outside of California and really just launch nationwide. And then folks on the back end, doing that human in the loop that we were talking about. Like the way that we look at it is have rebate experts that are managing our AI, right? We're leveraging the AI to help us do our jobs better, more quickly, more effectively, more accurately. But like we still need humans in the loop. And as we've grown our customer base significantly, like we need some more customer support help. I've got a couple missed calls and texts here just since we've been online from contractors with questions and stuff like that. And I love that part of my job. I really do. But I could also use a little bit of support there. So yeah, it's going to be an exciting 2026 for sure.
All right. Gary, do you have any questions?
Sure. Just one, really. You've talked a lot about incentives. Um, and until the end of the year, there have been tax credits available too. I don't know how many of those are going to survive at the federal level. They almost all disappear. But what's been your experience using your technique to help people get the tax credits?
Yeah, so we don't actually help people claim the tax credit directly. Like I remember in multiple of my past jobs, the first job, Resilient Buildings Group, and then at Sierra Business Council managing the program, there's always a little line item on our proposal documents that says like qualifies for the federal tax credit. We are not tax preparers. Consult with your tax professional for this. You'll file at the end of the year. So Resolve will show folks, our users, that it does or does not qualify for the federal tax credit and how much. And then the contractors basically pass that information along to the homeowner. They usually include that note on their quotes. And then we'll provide the documentation or information rather that homeowners need in order to claim the credit on their tax credits. But we aren't doing the paperwork for them, if that makes sense. It's one of the program, like the program that we can't actually do the work for. But to be honest, like my understanding is it's actually pretty straightforward on tax returns to claim the heat pump tax credit and the energy efficiency tax credits.
Yeah, but you're doing an important thing, just getting the documents together for people.
For
And
sure.
so, here's the bill of sale, here's the magic thing you have to say about which tax credit you're applying for. That's very helpful. Yeah, they need to consult with their tax preparer, but the tax preparer isn't going out and getting all the documentation.
For sure. Yep. Exactly.
And putting it in a shoebox and shoving it in front of your accountant.
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
getting that time of year. It's coming.
yeah. I've got the shoebox right back there.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, my final question, and kind of hopefully you can leave it on kind of a note or call to action is what was your final kind of aha moment, as in we have something here
Mm,
that you're just like, you know what? This is not just a cool idea. This is a business.
yeah. When I was so kind of funny, Shane and I were talking about the concept of something like Resolv. Basically, we're talking about starting a business in this space, right? Addressing some of these challenges and figuring out what that opportunity was. We kind of landed on Resolv, like what Resolv is today. And Shane and I at this point, we had met while traveling like a year prior. And so after that trip, Shane started learning more about the Inflation Reduction Act and heat pumps and all these different programs and how, amazing the equipment is and how much it's improved over time. And he just couldn't believe that there's all this money out there and most people aren't getting it and that it's so difficult to get. So he got like enamored by the problem, really. Um, and so, we started talking like every other week, and then it was every week, and then it was multiple times a week as we're like brainstorming and ideating. And we kind of like honed in on the initial concept of Resolv. And then one day I call Shane. I'm like, "What's up, man? How's it going?" He's like, "Good. I just gave my notice." And
Yeah,
I'm, wait, what? Yeah. And he's a senior software engineer at a venture-backed tech startup growing really fast. I was like, whoa, really? And I had just started my job at Sierra, or not just started, but I was like 6 months in maybe to my job at Sierra Business Council. So we'd been talking about the idea of leaving our jobs and starting a business for a while, but like I don't think he gave me any heads up that it was like on his roadmap to like give his notice. So I was like, holy smokes, that's crazy, dude. Awesome, congrats. Like, wow. And he's like, yeah, so you want to do this with me? And I was like, I mean, maybe, yes, I think so. Like, I don't know. I'm not like this is out of the blue. So Shane was awesome because he was just, he was ready and he saw the vision and the opportunity and it was just the right time for him. But I'd kind of just started this job and I felt like I just got my legs under me and I wanted to really, see some stuff out and help. Um, and I also realized when Shane put that, on my plate of like, he's doing it. This is real for him. I was like, holy smokes, I want to make sure that this is real for him and real for me. I think he had a contract with his former employer for like a month. So he had like a little bit of a backup safety net for a bit there. So my plan became start calling contractors, right? Like I got to really do the validation. And, like I said earlier, I knew what I knew, but I wanted to make sure that that wasn't just in my head and other people agreed basically. So I started calling contractors. And I was like doing this on my lunch break. I honestly sorry, Sierra Business Council, sometimes during work hours, I would work late, but couldn't do it after hours because contractors won't pick up the phone. So I had to like squeeze in calls. My goal was like talk to 50 contractors in a month or something like that. And I didn't hit that. I think I hit that over the course of like 3 months. But I remember I had a day where I called 20 contractors and I couldn't get like anybody on the phone to talk to me about this. And I was just like, oh, I'm like deflated. It was like at the beginning of me doing these customer, initial kind of customer interviews. And then like the next day, I called a contractor actually close by. I think they're in Auburn, Mize guys, and the one of the owners. She was just wonderful and spoke to me for like a half hour. But I had these questions that were, there's a structure, a framework for these types of customer interviews, right? And it's like you don't want to lead the customer. You don't want to introduce your bias. You want to keep it open-ended and really hear like the honest truth from them. So I spent time developing those questions. And just one by one, she was just checking the box. Like it was just perfect. And I remember I still have the notes document somewhere. I'll pull it up at some point and refresh myself. But at some point she said, we need a solution that will find us all the rebates at any given time. We can't keep track of them. They always change. And then we need the solution, the software that'll, qualify the equipment and make sure we're going to get the money. And then we need software that'll do the paperwork. Come on, it's 2024 now or 2023 now. Like we should have a tool that can do this. And I just was like, yep, that would be great, wouldn't it? And I think one of my final questions is like, would you pay for this really? And if so, how much? And I can't remember what she said, but it was enough for me to be like, wow, this is crazy. And I immediately chatted Shane. Um, and then really quick, and I'll wrap up because I know this is a rambling answer here.
No, it's great. Keep going.
Okay. Shortly after that, I'm on a email listserv, the California decarbonization email listserv, and I get an email, or there's a thread that's starting to, pick up some steam with folks in this group. And it's all about the challenge of rebate programs, specifically for contractors. And you know what it was? Is somebody actually forwarded to me, a colleague of mine forwarded to me. He's like, "Have you been looking at this? You got to read this," because he knew what I was thinking about working on. And it was just like industry professional after industry professional just laying out all of the pain points that Shane and I had been talking about and, brainstorming on, to the point where at some point a director of programs at a large municipal utility that you guys know well, she literally just was like, I have the quote, I use it in presentations sometimes. She's like, what if there was a solution that would find all the rebates, qualify them, do the paperwork for the contractor, send the homeowner whatever they need, help them, maximize funding by stacking everything and guiding them to the right solutions? Is this real or is this just a pipe dream? If we could crack this nut, wow. And same thing. I was like, Shane, look at this email thread, dude. Like, this is exactly what we've been talking about and asking questions about and looking for. So those two moments were like really big in my journey of being like, okay, this is real. This is something that we got to go do.
So I want to highlight to everyone out there that customer discovery and just looking kind of everywhere for it. You try to do 50 interviews in the first month. Ambitious goals. You got to start high, aim for the stars, hit the moon, whatever it is. I think that's a great kind of note to end on there. Um, so with that, I want to first uh, thank you for joining us today. Round of applause. Thank you for joining us. It was a great discussion, especially like the parts of, following skiing and then also customer discovery on it. Um, Sounds like you got a long road ahead of you still though, but I think you got a good head on you for this. I'm optimistic to hear more from you in the future. I want to thank the supporters of this Clean Start perspective: SMUD, Chico Start, Fresno State, Witten Law, Baker Tilly, and River City Bank. I want to encourage people to come and join us next week at the holiday party. Maybe Sam will drive down and participate in that at the Urban Hive here in Sacramento, 5 p.m. It's meet a whole bunch of startups and people trying to figure out that customer discovery solution. And with that, I want to thank you all for attending. A slightly shorter version of this will be on YouTube in the coming days. And make sure you follow us on all the social media channels. Thank you, everyone out there. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Alrighty.
Appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Sam.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.